if you get insecure about your design or don't think it's working as good as it could, it's a great idea to take it into Photoshop and start playing with proportions there. Do something like liquefy or paint over it and just really play around with it here.
It's such a quick tool to just push your design to new lengths. Places you weren't really sure it could go.
Yeah.
Because like because you're doing it in ZBrush, it's like, oh, maybe I'll do it a little bit here. But this is, you're not messing with your sculpt at this point. So it's easier to sort of detach yourself from it.
Yeah. So I use liquefy a lot when designing. And just Photoshop in general, like photo bashing some stuff on top, trying out different things. I think I put this guy here in a suit at some point, just like photoshopping him into it. Because like Morten says, it's really easy to get attached to your sculpt once you're in ZBrush. So here I'm just trying out different directions, trying to make him more silly, more evil, and just trying out things.
More Mega Man. Yeah. Megamind? Megamind? Yeah, it's Megamind. It was like you can see how much the character actually changes, whether his if his forehead is bigger, if his jaw is wider, all these little things make the character feel very different. Right now he looks like, weird hillbilly with super small eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And this is only proportion. So this shows how important proportion actually is. Again, no changes in details whatsoever.
Yeah, and all of these are like a different character.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, just a few seconds in Photoshop with liquefy.
Exactly.
Beautiful nose.
Yeah, very, very nice.
But this is one of the things. But then you do this, and you can start painting, like Henning mentioned. It's like you don't have to be restricted to the liquefy tool, and you just go in, find some photos, give him a cape.
Yeah,
got an old Superman.
Try stuff out. I mean, what we're doing, the changes we're doing here are fairly conservative. We're changing proportions here and there. But for other designs, we've just been going crazy with that.
Yeah,
like just literally give him a different body, steal photos from internet, and just attach it on top.
Yeah, because all of these changes are fairly conservative.
Yeah.
You could take the forehead and make it 3 times as big, right? Just to see how would it look. It probably wouldn't look very good.
No, but you can try stuff out. And then you can take it into ZBrush later on and see if it works. I didn't really fall in love with any of the big design changes here, but just trying some stuff out. It's always good to just get a fresh idea of what you want. We're getting also there in terms of the design now. It's not changing drastically from this. The main volumes are there, the anatomy is somehow there. And we have a foundation for this. What we don't have is clothing. Because again, remember children, people have clothing on them.
Unless the pedophile... Is he a pedophile?
No, he's not a pedophile, but he could be.
Yeah.
But no, he's...
Because I remember, because we had some talks about like backstory and sort of like what shaped his life. Remember we talked about him being like an old war hero, and he was evil man. It was like maybe we had these talks about he was like an evil Catholic priest or something.
Yeah, that was one idea I was trying out, seeing if he's an evil Catholic priest, that would imply certain things. But what we ended up with here was my idea was he was an old man who was born wealthy but ended up in the streets. And once when we're meeting him in the story or whatever, we're meeting him, he's old, extremely bitter, and he's pretty much on the streets.
Standard old person.
So what we're doing here in terms of clothing is something like a poor person would wear, like in 1800s. This is not current day old man. This is like 200 years ago old man. So what kind of clothing would you get then?
Yeah, and one of the things is when you're doing a sculpt like this, try to also include a little bit of the shoulders.
Yeah.
And, you just put some fabric, like make the clothing look like there are shoulders. Because that part of the body actually affects the face a lot as well, in terms of like how you want to express him, how do you want to rotate his head and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's weird to just have a floating head.
Yeah, see movie posters like that? It's creepy.
So if you want to have some interest, we'll get more into this later on, but if you want to have some interest in character, you can rotate the head one bit and the shoulders one bit, and the other way. And if you don't have shoulders, you're just rotating a head, which can look a bit weird.
Yeah.
So it gets way slower now, the sculpting. It's still time-lapse the same speed, but you're just sculpting slower, and the changes are a lot more conservative here than
because in the beginning, you have a big brush, broad strokes, you just do drastic changes to the silhouette, and it looks like you're doing a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is kind of I don't know. I feel different people find different parts of the sculpting process interesting.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to the detailing, I kind of lose interest a little bit because that's not the challenging part. You know, filling in the pores and filling in the tiny wrinkles here and there. That's not what really pushes you.
That's labor.
Yeah, that's in the beginning, the design. That's where you really have to think a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I find the design bit to be hard. I mean, it's not that doing details isn't hard. It's just because then you have a different challenge. It's more like what's the best way of getting realism. But it's a different challenge in terms of design. It's just a design challenge. The first bit up to this point here is the hardest one. Design wise, this guy is done now. The rest is pretty much just labor, just getting all the folds, to be refined and all that. But yeah, the hard part for me here is finished.
Sadness in your voice. Oh, it's just labor from now on.
It's over. But it's also funny when you're doing a character like that, because let's say you're doing this full time, and the first days you're seeing huge improvement. You're drastically changing the character. And I worked on a character for like a year ago now. I worked on it professionally for about 5 months, and the first days you're seeing all this cool improvement, and a day after 5 months, you're seeing incremental changes, important changes, but it's so tiny in the end. So that's what we're seeing here as well. And as the further we get in the process, the smaller the changes get.
You can see how much there is to play around with just around the eyes.
Yeah.
The skin and the way the muscles start to sag around the eyes. It's all of those things. I mean, there's small changes, but all of them sort of add to the character, add to the feel of the character. Is he an alcoholic? Is he just tired?
Yeah.
What is it?
Also, as this is not just a sculpting tutorial, the entire series is more about pipeline and the process. We should probably discuss a couple of things here. How to work efficiently with this. One is you want to work symmetrically at this point. There is some asymmetry in the forehead and all that, but that's a detail. You don't want to have major changes to your character at this point on either side, unless it's like Two-Face, like it's literally a different character on either side. But if you have minor changes, like there are some small proportion changes there, model it in symmetrically.
Yeah, because you can always then later, make one of the eyes droopy and offset the nose to the side a little bit.
You can even do it as a blend shape in Maya or Modo or wherever you're using. But the advantage of doing this symmetrically is you get a symmetrical mesh, a perfectly symmetrical mesh in Modo, which means you can you only model one side. It's a lot quicker, and you can UV map one side, and it's just quicker in general.
Yeah.
It's a huge. I can't stress this enough how important it is to have symmetrical topology if you can.
I mean, this also goes on to production, and it's very rare that in production we actually do something asymmetrical.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are characters or stuff like that where it's completely asymmetrical. Then of course you have to do it like that. But most of the time it's symmetrical, so you only do half the work.
Exactly. Particularly like let's say you're doing blend shapes for something. Blend shapes is that's where you're doing all the facial expressions and all that. I just want to talk a little bit about this, as this is aimed for more production and not just art. So blend shapes is a huge part of making the character work. You're sculpting custom facial expression per character, and if you can do that on one side and mirror it over, it's so beneficial. Obviously, you might need some asymmetry in those, but having a symmetrical mesh is really helpful. So that's why we're sculpting everything symmetrical now. I find it to be more interesting design challenge, sculpting everything without symmetry. It's way more. You can do way more cool stuff with it.
But it's terrible for production.
It's terrible. The 2% extra you gain, you lose by, spending twice as much time on everything else.
Yeah. And actually, another good thing you can look at in terms of referencing for faces like this is muscle placement, where the muscles attach and how they bulge on the face. It's just some sort of diagram that shows you the different muscles, right? So where you would have a sort of natural buildup of muscles and, for example, down by the jaw, the volume that it builds up down there, it's a small important detail, but it helps you with the face.
It helps the plane changes to read and all that.
Yeah.
On the note of muscles though in the face, the muscles on the face I mean, obviously don't act differently than a muscle for the body because it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. But when it comes to muscle for the body, you can see the biceps, you can see the pecs very clearly. You can draw their shape out as an crochet on top of your sculpt. But for the face, you know, if you have like for older people and like really skinny people, you can start to see the definition here. And if you're pulling extreme facial expressions, but when it comes to like young people or, you know, women or pretty much anything which is not like an old person, you can't really see any indication of muscle. You can see indication.
Yeah,
but you can't see anything else.
And what it'll really help you with is to figure out where the volumes come from.
Yeah.
Like the volumes of the cheek and the volumes
exactly.
on the chin, not the chin, but the cheeks and stuff. It's like, why is the volume there?
Yeah.
Right? It's not a guide to sort of place these muscles here,
No.
but it's more of like, it gives you an understanding of why is there bulging at the corners of the mouth, right? Because all the muscles, they diverge there to pull the mouth aside.
Like Mortimer was talking about earlier as well regarding the eyes, how like they start to droop. They start to like, you know, become soggy because the muscles are getting looser. So it's important to know that they're there, but you probably will not indicate them directly.
No.
They will form a common mass, and they will.
Yeah, because it's not like you'll be able to make out individual muscles.
No.
It's like Kenny said, it's not like the bicep. It's more like, you know, you have a collection of muscles that gives you an overall volume.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is one of the reasons faces are so hard to do.
Yeah.
Because there is.
And that's exactly why something like the bony landmark starting off with a skeleton, that is something you see, you know, that's something you can clearly indicate.
Yeah.
And that's where you know, okay, this is where my muscles attach. This is why volume is being built up there.
So the more you sculpt, the more you realize that, well, what Mortner is saying kind of makes sense. I'm not saying that, you know, we know everything about this, but, you know, we've been doing this for quite some time now. But doing this way, it makes sense the more you do it, the more this is going to make sense, essentially. And now doing the hair. When doing the hair, it's pretty much the same approach when it comes to sculpting as everything else. It's start big, then work to more specific bits.
Because if you start out doing strands of hair, like tiny strands, you're just screwing yourself over.
So screwed. You need to add what we can refer to as enhancement details. It needs to read as hair, but this is going to be more stylized. You can't do individual strands of hair. It's like, you know, if you're drawing hair as well on paper, I see so many guys doing that, and you just go crazy with, you know, individual strands. Big shapes first. If the big shapes aren't working, it doesn't matter how many details you have. And look at reference for hair as well. It's weird, because a lot of guys, they look for reference for everything else.
Yeah.
Or for like 90% of things, and suddenly like, yeah, I know what hair looks like, or I know what a shirt looks like. No, if you're going for realism, you need to look at everything.
It's even not even realism. I mean, it's like hair is... Like if you're sculpting a volume of hair, you're obviously not going to do a groom and you're not going to have individual hair strands.
No.
It's like, even if it's a stylized mesh, you still need to sort of understand the like, not the physics, but like how hair works, you know, grows out from one point. It's not like something that's put on top of your head. It grows out from, you know, maybe 1 or 2 points. Some people have 2 like swirls in the hair where it grows out from. Commonly it's 1, and everything follows from there, right? The flow, the clumping, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Man, he's so old. If you look quickly behind the ears, or like in front of the ears for the lobes, you can see there's a little bit of a build up there. And just as a quick note for old people, you actually start to get like wrinkles right in front of the earlobe, which is such a, like, it's a bizarre thing, but just a small thing that helps you sort of like sell the age a little bit.
Something I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't looked at reference. It's something I've been doing this for a couple of years now, but like, you know, you wouldn't assume that people have ear wrinkles. Because young people don't have that.
No. And like, most of the people that we look at are not like this old or this wrinkly.
And again, just working with like some more bigger shapes here. I keep going back to the fundamentals. If something isn't working, I might just resculpt a bit, like the nasolabial fold here, and just like, you know, just resculpting it or resculpting parts of it. Make sure it's working. And it's still concepting at this point here. Sure, we have more details at this point, but there is nothing set in stone in terms of topology. We still haven't retopologized this model here. It's still, in every sense of the word, a concept model. You're not attached to anything.
Yeah.
That said, once we get into retopology, that's a different world. You don't want to push that too far, then, because then you're gonna have to redo your topology, your UVs, and all that kind of stuff.
No one likes doing things twice.
Particularly not retopology.
No. It's like, people say, oh, it's always faster the second time. Yeah, but you want to kill yourself after the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, retopology, no.
And sometimes, doing it the second time, sure, it might be better, but sometimes first time is good enough.
It's fine.
Exactly.
A really nice brush to use when doing hair is just the standard brush.
Yeah.
If you were to use something like the Damien standard all the time, you would get really deep grooves everywhere.
Yeah.
But the standard brush just gives you a really nice peak, a really nice sort of plane to start from. Yeah. And I feel like the standard brush is such an underrated brush a lot of the time.
It is. Standard. I use damp standard a lot for hair as well. This is using a fair bit of damp standard as well, but definitely use damp standard for hair. I use the standard brush for hair, and for refinement. If I want clean shapes, I use the standard brush. And something like clothing as well is great for that kind of stuff, because then you want clean shapes. I find that the clay brushes can produce not noisy results, but I have more control when it comes to like very clean shapes.
Yeah, and when you think of hair in terms of volumes, if you think of it in terms of like this tube volume, right? Mm-hmm. It flows from one place to the other, and there's like a buildup from one side to the other. Instead of having flat volumes, having like more round volumes, I think will help sell the sort of like the hair a little bit better. And
like we said before, with keep it symmetrical, don't keep hair symmetrical. That's gonna be really weird. Even if it's like, even if the character is some kind of extreme like anal like manager or something like that, or like a super evil overlord, which is extremely methodical, nothing is symmetrical.
Yeah.
Like, unless there's extremely specific purpose, it would never be. The hair is never symmetrical.
No. And here you can see this is sort of the swirl. I don't know, is it called a swirl?
I have no idea what this is called. I don't know hair.
The point in the hair where it grows from, right?
We refer to it in technical terms.
Very, very technical, specific terms. Maybe we should learn that.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a really important part. I've actually seen hair a fair few times where it's just like hair is just on the head.
Yeah.
And this is missing.
Yeah.
And you're like, maybe, I don't know if you think about it, but it's pretty crucial.
Yeah. Which is why we look at reference, I think did we mention that, Martin?
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I think we...
Maybe we haven't stressed it enough.
But seriously, we haven't.
We should make a reference tutorial.
Yeah, we should.
The thing that also really helps to sell the hair, sort of in terms of integration with the head, is, as you can see, we're sculpting a lot on the border between the hair and the head.
Yeah.
This just helps to give like more individual, now we're individual big lumps sort of attached to the head, and it's just a nice way of integrating, instead of you have like just a straight line that goes all the way around, and it's like hair. It's like a weird sort of
if you're doing like exactly. And if you're doing like a proper groom, like obviously this here is not a proper groom because this is like more clay sculpt, but if you're doing that, you want to have like a soft gradation from where the head is to where the hair starts. Hair doesn't go from 0 to 100%. You have all these like tiny, almost like invisible little hairs going initially, and then it goes from tiny hairs, shorter hairs, to thicker and thicker.
And one thing, this is actually an interesting thing I noticed a couple of months ago, is that if you're doing a man and a woman, the way their hairline is very, very different. A woman's hairline, they're actually a lot more of these tiny, tiny, weird... Well, they're not weird. They're different. They're small hairs on the side where the temples are, where men are a lot more clean cut.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at, make sure to look at gender-specific references for things like these, because it actually... it's nothing that you would probably notice, because, I've been alive for 20 plus years, and I hadn't noticed it until recently.
But you feel it.
Yeah, and it's a nice sort of addition, I think.
All these kind of small things, you still feel them if you put them into your sculpt. Even though you consciously can't see them, your eye picks it up. Your brain is like, I know what you're doing. And also as a note here with hair, if, kind of figure out the camera angle.
Yeah.
We know that this here is not going to be a perfect turntable. If it is a turntable, then I will sculpt everything.
You can see someone might be a little sloppy on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're not going to see a lot of that. Like a lot from the side maybe and the front. And that's where a lot of the energy is being put. And obviously you can see that part of the hair is a lot cleaner.
Yeah. Because even if it's a turntable, we still care more about the front. So that's obviously if you're doing like a character for a full film or a game or something, every angle needs to work. But, spend energy on where you need, on where it's going to be seen. And check the silhouette. You can see we're changing the silhouette here just to be stronger.
And just pay attention to how much the hair actually contributes to the silhouette and how much it changes the character.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
And also, I know we're talking a lot about hair at this point, but like with stuff like beards as well, and like beards and hair, they require a solid foundation of like underneath. You need a skull for the hair to lie on. If you're doing like a huge Gandalf beard, you still need the face there. You can't just have a floating mouth with weird beard around it. It needs all to work. Otherwise,
even though it's a wizard and it's magic.
Yeah, exactly. He's not gonna have a magical beard. Magical stuff, maybe, but
That would be awesome, though. Like, instead of the staff, it's a magical beard. So you just wave it around.
Slightly different film. I'd watch that.
I'm making that.
So here you can see as well, like, there's some asymmetry to the hair now. And it can really help bring out a lot of character to it. And now just more symmetrical sculpting. Just blocking in the lips more. Again, look at reference of lips. Don't have equal weight all around them. They're more, for instance, the bottom lip is kind of like split in the middle. There's more weight on either side. The middle is it almost has like a bit of like a depression in there. And when doing this bit, doing the forehead, lower part of the forehead, disables symmetry. This is more like surface sculpting, or more like the finer bits here of the muscles, but really disables symmetry for this kind.
And that's actually worth noting in terms of any sort of, like right at the symmetry line, right? Right where left and right meet. If you can try and make those parts just a little bit asymmetrical, it'll actually go a long way of selling your sculpt as an asymmetrical sculpt.
Exactly.
You can still keep a lot of the stuff on either side symmetrical, but right in the middle, that's where you really start to notice if things are exactly the same.
Yeah. And asymmetry is important, and we do add that later on. But we do that after it has been retopologized. And UV'd, actually.
Yeah.
And now we still have brush strokes in the model. And, I mean, brush strokes are fine and all, but if you're going for realism, obviously, the brush stroke needs to go.
You sure?
Yeah, pretty sure.
No brush strokes in my face.
You have a couple. But...
One thing that actually also sells old people a lot is right underneath the chin, right where the neck area is, right? You have the sternocleidomastoid, and right in this area here, you have a lot of these sinuous parts. These parts really start to sag once you
what we're sculpting right now.
Yeah, and this is the, like, I don't know, the old people muscles. It's like, this is really like, this is an area that, for all the old people out there, and this is not like of course there are exceptions where there's more and less, but the muscles here where you pull, sort of like, I don't know, if you like do a angry face, right? You can sort of feel the muscles underneath
platysma.
You. But yeah, exactly, the platysma. It really starts to sag a lot once you get up in
and that's a great way of adding age to the character. If you're doing young character and you have a saggy platysma, that's...
instant 20 H plus. There you go.
Exactly.
Don't do it on babies.
No. That would look very weird.
I wonder if I guess you could, but...
So there are, I just want to talk a bit more about pipeline as well, like just how we would do this. So there are different ways of doing characters. The more traditional way is to just do box modeling or plane modeling in something like Maya or Modo, where you're literally modeling the character plane by plane. You're matching up to reference images, and you're just modeling up. And then all the volume there is, is created in something like Maya or Modo. The problem with that approach is you're fixing, or you're doing topology, which is a technical bit, at the same time as you're doing the artistic bit, which is really, really hard. So the way we do it here is instead of doing topology and design at the same time, we're separating them out into two specific parts, which is the design, which we're currently doing now. We don't care about topology at all. Literally no thought in topology. And then later on, we do retopology, where we literally do not think about the design at all, apart from, specific requirements of, how would it move? Do we need specific topology here to be able to do that expression, for instance? But it's really nice as we get a lot stronger designs. And it's a lot faster to do as well.
Yeah, because you can just sort of block that technical aspect out.
Yeah.
And save it for later.
And if you're doing the old school way, which is model it first, then do sculpting on top of that, which is the way they did it like a lot of years ago. Still do it some places. The problem is you're not really seeing the character until you've been doing topology and doing all the sculpting.
Whereas this is just immediate.
Yeah.
You get the feel a lot faster.
So you can show this to a director right away, or a soup, or a client.
Because they don't care about topology.
No,
that's not important.
No,
to them.
Exactly. They will. A director is not going to be like, yeah, the design is good, but can I see like the wireframe? Like, it would literally never happen. And maybe like James Cameron, because he's a crazy person. But like apart from that, would never happen. So this is such a good way of doing it, because you can focus on the artistic aspects first, and then you can worry about the technical bits later on. A bit of CG history for you right there.
There you go. Brought to you by Henning and Morten.
Yeah. I think it's a bit important to talk about some of these features as well. Just like why we do it the way we do here. Because if you Google something like character modeling tutorial, you can be sure that you're gonna find like old school tutorials where you do box modeling and like these kind of crazy methods from 2003 using 3ds Max 6 or something.
Yeah, and like crazy. The software and the techniques have changed a lot throughout the years. And this is still such a young industry, young field, and it keeps evolving like all the time.
Yeah. But what's not evolving is the techniques, or the core techniques. The anatomy is not changing. I mean, unless humans change.
Yeah, the stuff that's existed for thousands of years. That's it's pretty set in stone.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, in 10 years, zebras might not be there. But I'm pretty sure the sternocleidomastoid, is still going to be there. So, but by having this knowledge, the core knowledge of how anatomy works and how design works, you're future-proofing yourself. I've seen it a lot as well, where you have professionals, very good professionals, in like old software, who they just can't reinvent themselves, because all their knowledge, all their professional expertise is tied to that specific software. And that's such a huge problem, because as times progress, you need artistic skills as a foundation.
And you kind of need to keep up with, like, I'm not saying that just because when you're using a piece of software that really works really well, you can totally stay in that. Yeah. But I feel like it's important to keep up to date with the current software, just to see. I mean, it's always like, old people don't want to change because it was way better back in the day, 5 years ago, whatever. But it's like, but you still have to consider, what can this piece of software give me that what I'm using might not be able to provide. So it's important to keep an open sort of CG mind, I think.
Yeah, it is. And I would highly recommend staying up to date on software, because fall 2 versions behind, and like you're so obsolete.
Especially when it comes to ZBrush, one version and you don't pay attention. Oh man, it's just so many new features all the time.
Well, we're talking on the sculpting here is just kind of the same. It's just the same as we can just talk a bit about software as well. When it comes to, we work in visual effects, and the software used there is Maya. Modo is really cool, and this is a Modo tutorial, so obviously we're not going to trash talk Modo, and it's a great piece of software. But when it comes to visual effects, if you want to work in visual effects, you need to learn Maya. There is just no even discussion. It's not even about what's better. It's not like Modo is great for a lot of things, but it's just the fact that Framestore is not going to change your pipeline.
Yeah, because and, a lot of I'm not going to say a lot. Some studios have Modo in their pipeline as a sort of a concepting tool. Yeah, which is because it's so fast. You model, boom, done, instant. Yeah, Mesh Fusion, boom, done. Yeah, but it's not pipeline integrated with a lot of companies.
So I've used Modo a fair bit at MPC for certain bits, such as retopology and general modeling here and there. But I use Maya in my day-to-day workflow, because it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to stay with to stay with one software, particularly when you're dealing with pipeline. If you need to bring something from Modo into Maya all the time, there are a lot of stuff which is pipeline specific. There are tags assigned to it, specific UV sets. Like there is just so much junk which gets attached to it, which is needed for the pipeline. If you keep jumping between the different softwares, you're gonna have a hard time with that. It's simply not worth the extra effort. That said, Modo is an amazing software, and I still use it in my daily workflow. Just a little digression there. And same with this, like this is just a piece of clothing here. There's a shirt. I still have some reference for this, but the buttons are just sculpted on top because this is design. We're purely playing with the design at this point.
And all of that is going to change, obviously. We're going to make some buttons.
Yeah.
This is going to be a cylinder. It's not going to be anything amazing.
No.
But this is just, because the focus isn't on his clothing. Like, you might see some of it, the parts down by his neck and his shoulders, but it's not like the focus of this.
We're going to blur the shit out of them and just put them in darkness anyway.
And look at his tiny shoulders.
Yeah, tiny shoulders. But I definitely, when doing clothing, look at reference. I think we might have said that. But yeah, clothing is complicated. You need, like when I was doing this, I put on a shirt and I sat in a mirror. I had a mirror on my desk when doing this because it just helps.